Chapter 5 Far-Fetched Freedom. We approached New Appaloosa, exchanging tales of another, and most notably, we were blushing brightly and red like two ripe tomatoes in the sunshine. Her sweet and loving ways made me feel like the wastelands were the best thing ever. Her sweet eyes and voice and the way we matched worked better than ice cream and apple pie put together. It felt afternoonish, but the almost perma-sealed sky made it hard to tell at times.
Didn't think a colt who was 237 years old would look this young.
Compound remarked, looking at the blue colt that is me. We were slowly approaching the small outpost east of the town called New Appaloosa. Things felt a little more lax compared to what it was like before a bar of ponies figured out I had a pair of wings.
And I never knew potions could do those kind of things.
She had told me all the things she could do with her potions, which were an unorthodox method of getting around in my eyes, and being so unique usually earned quite a few bonus points in this stallion's eyes. Ponies were strolling around, talking, cartwheels were pushed, and a few ponies even waved at us. It was a great feeling. It was windy as we went towards Sceptic's place. We needed his expertise on an important matter.
Oh hey, New Leaf and Compound. Did everything go well?
He was a little worried, but seeing both of us back in one piece made him happy.
We managed to get one mining factory thingy to, well, follow my hoofsteps, but many foes they kept in containment there were sick, and they need help.
I briefly explained my situation, wondering if he'd be the one willing to help.
Well, sure would you two, but no clue how I can get back and forth from there quick. I get patience here as well.
He maybe could teleport you there, I wonder.
Compound looked at me, and what started as a thoughtful tilt of my head became a firm nod. I was certain I could bring him there, but had no clue how to teleport him back unless I had something I'd bring with him. But I had an idea how to take care of that.
It's a very magical kind of paper that you can use to communicate and tell us when you're done.
I explained as we trotted towards my den/home/cave and removed the box covering the entrance. Sceptic was just in straight up awe as the trapdoor came in sight.
Just when you think you know it all, this happened.
He followed us inside, and I grabbed a pair of books from the shelf. Not very big, but quite useful.
Okay, Sceptic, write something in it.
I gave him an inked quill, and watched as our earth pony friend here conjured up a thought to write. But what seemed like writing quickly turned to be a sweet drawing of his cutie mark. I opened up the other book, and his drawing appeared in it, and Sceptic dropped the quill from his muzzle in a gasp.
So, when I'm done, you'll know when and where to bring me back?
He concluded, and we nodded in unison.
Do keep an eye on my place, you two, while I'm out.
He instructed while we left my base. He held the book we gave him after we trotted back to his little house. He gathered some equipment in a big bag. Didn't know how most of this was going to be used, but it was certain he'd help the ponies in that factory near New Hope, and I knew exactly where I could teleport him. Give or take some distance, but it would work.
Will do,
I assured him, looking into his eyes.
So what do I need to be doing now, New Leaf?
just hold still, and when you're there, tell them who sent you. They should know us.
I explained and focused my magic. I needed to wind up stronger magic like this quite a bit, but after a few moments I released a powerful teleportation spell, and he was gone. And I was being sweaty, but looked at Compound very happily. My saddlebag vibrated as some pony rode into the book. I opened it, and as I got it from my saddlebag, I found a "Made it" written into one of the pages. Somehow. I didn't see him bring any righty stuff, but I was sure it was all good. Me being me, I started to explore and look at some of the things here. What an interesting place he had. Many items and gear that I couldn't really handle.
Oh, wow.
Compound squealed as she pointed to a yellow bottle.
I have to buy this thing from him. It can be used to make my favorite kind of potion.
No pony had come yet, but I was curious to see why, and wanted some fresh air, when I heard a little yawn behind me.
Okay, Your Majesty. I guess some fresh air would do as well.
We decided to trot around the block and shut the door tightly. A few hoof steps later, behind his house, we had made plans for what to do next.
I do want to find out who Ruby Rubble was working for.
I explained my next step, but the next thing I heard was a loud cracking sound, followed by what felt like a giant bloat sprite stinging my hooves. It took me a moment to realize that I'd been shot, but the next thing I felt was a strong shove from behind. Compound pushing us both back behind the wall of Sceptic's home. I tried getting up, but standing on my hooves was wobbly somehow. But I did manage to get my shield up just in time.
Surprised you haven't turned this down into cinders, Alicorn.
I recognized a familiar voice, and soon face as she came into view. The pony who sat next to me in the bar 2 nights ago.
What's your problem, huh?
Compound didn't think twice and gave her a punch right to the face.
See how you like getting hit randomly like that?
Compound looked at her, then to me. The ground underneath me was getting more red than I'd like, and I was not good with resisting pain. I was breathing heavily.
Don't you get it? He's gonna destroy every pony and building in this town.
The mayor looked at Compound.
Maybe in your narrow world, but he's actually gonna bring things together again.
I nodded slowly, being in the state. I managed to look at myself. 3 shots, that's how many I counted. Not sure if they were still inside of me.
I don't trust it.
She got back up and tried hitting Compound back, but it was only a mere try, as I held her in place with my telekinesis, which was easy to do on a weakened pony.
Because shooting every pony's gonna help you out.
She started flailing with her hooves.
Alicorns are killers! You'd already be toast if you was, Smarty.
Compound threatened her, and she did have a point.
Maybe he's just trying to get our trust and then backstab.
Compound gave her a cool gaze, while she was hanging there.
Only wimps will shoot you behind your back. You're right.
Meanwhile, I was sort of pandering on the edge of dizziness. I had it with this pony.
The real killers are the ones that shoot whatever they see.
I burst out in thought. I tied her up with a bunch of rusty chains we found behind Sceptic's house, and staggered back inside, trying to keep on my hose, and forcefully levitated her inside. I dropped her into a room in the back which looked a lot like it was meant for forceful containment of patients, steel gated and everything. I sat down, having half of the remains of a health potion I had. It didn't do much though, due to things being stuck inside of me. The mare we had caught had a very bloody nose, and may have also broken it in the process of fighting with Compound, as I suspected, now that I got a better look.
Really? Locking me in here? If you're gonna kill me, like the Alicorn are, then just do it.
She yelled at me in Compound.
I don't really know how to bandage or pull bullets out of a pony. I hope Sceptic's back soon.
Compound sat next to me and nuzzled me. I felt really weak, not fatally injured, but more than enough to keep me grounded. The captured assassin looked at us with suspicion.
What a buckin' player.
She muttered while looking at us. I didn't understand why she was so hostile towards me. I never did anything to earn her mistrust. I was so sure that if she'd gotten to know me more that she would think differently of me. The front door started to squeak. A customer? Compound took care of it. I heard her voice, as she was talking to another pony.
And then this brushmere here has the nerve to randomly shoot a pony because she feels like it.
A green unicorn came through to the back and saw me and the pony we had locked up.
And I thought at least those streets is safe for box sakes.
He trotted up to the gate and glared at her.
If we all thinking like that, then we all dead, miss.
He seemed both angry and terrified.
The alicorn, huh?
He turned to me and looked at me laying there.
I heard about it a night ago, and to me you're just as much pony as, well, any other pony.
He shared his opinion with us.
Usually, the pony who gets attacked in this town gets to pick the punishment.
He went to the front and took his groceries. After he said goodbye, he seemed in a rush. After a few more customers that compound handled, the book in my bag vibrated suddenly, and I opened it to see A-OK written into it with letters. I accidentally got blood stained onto one of the pages and sat up.
Compound, he's done.
I tried speaking, sort of half with it, and feeling dizzier than having cider for 3 ponies. But I knew I had to teleport the doctor back if I didn't want him to get stranded out there. I teleported the last magic potion I had to my muzzle and swallowed it down in one take, before closing my eyes, and focusing my magic as much as I could. I had to muster up quite a lot of strength to pull it off in a state like this. My horns started to glow at first, then sparkle and shine brightly, and the next thing was the book that I had teleported was next to me, along with Sceptic, who was laying there when he came to be. I sighed in relief. The blood started to drip everywhere from my hooves, and I couldn't stand anymore. I had to lay down, as my body didn't let me. My eyes felt heavy and I shut them, like forcing me to fall asleep.
Fuck.
I heard some ponies say, last thing before I saw, well, nothing. I found myself laying in a patch of green grass and sunlight. I didn't know what this meant or where it came from, but I was just laying there, and in the distance, ponies, but I couldn't get up to reach them. I felt something stingy in my side, and the dream, or whatever I was having, started to blur away, and I found myself awaking on a stretcher, and my eyes slowly popped open. I felt something heavy against my head.
You're gonna be fine, sweetie, just hold still.
Compound's comforting voice. She was petting me, and while my vision got clear, I saw Dr. Sceptic with some sort of metal gadget, and the next thing I felt was another quite painful sting on my side as he was pulling on something, and a loud. Later, I realized he'd been pulling out the bullets out of my body. I was good at feeling pain instantly.
Howie, are you ponies alright?
Yeah, silly, but gotta make sure you are too, Leaf.
A nuzzle against my ears from her, I felt so taken care of. Sceptic got some bandage and started wrapping it around my hinds and one of my fronts, and second later I felt good to go.
You don't owe me Jack, Leaf. That's for 2 teleports of yours and getting to help all those little foals. First, I thought I was going to get some rough welcome, but they were expecting me and were happy and nice and everything.
We went to the back, to the green earth pony mare, who shot me, and who I got locked up. She still hadn't moved. Well, it was hard to even get out of those chains the way we had tied her up. I calmly looked at her and was already hatching an idea on how to deal with her doubts, and of course a way on how to convince her that I'm about as harmless as it gets.
Well, Leaf, your call what we do with her.
Sceptic finally confirmed what I'd heard earlier, and I had quite the idea.
If you're gonna kill me, just go for it.
She told me and sighed. Her weapon, I was looking at it, but of course I had no clue on how to operate this thing. But I didn't need to anyway.
I don't like to kill ponies, and I don't know how to use those shooty weapons anyway.
Then how are you still alive?
I got a tilted facial expression from her. My magic and being nice to others. I made it brief with her.
Either you're faking it all, or you're the luckiest pony to ever be alive.
Or it's all true and simple as it seems. I added towards her thoughts.
He's different in the best of ways.
Compound looked into my eyes. I looked at the captured pony, and she was uncertain, like not knowing what to think of me, and the easiest thing for her had seemed to shoot me. That's what I understood.
Well, my idea for punishment is that you have to follow us for 3 days. And if after that you still think I'm some sort of monster, you can still leave.
Sceptic went in and took off her chains, and opened the door.
Scattershot.
She muttered, looking at me and Compound. I gave her weapon back to her, and I swear her muzzle was open for the next 5 minutes, trying to grasp what was happening, and I really didn't know why.
You give the mayor who gave you those?
She was pointing to my bandages.
The thing I used to hurt you with?
She took it in her muzzle, and I was sure she'd have question marks above her head any second now. Maybe she was questioning herself.
And if I were one of those nasty alicorns, odds are this town would have turned into the biggest matchbox ever.
I added and smiled.
Huh, touche. New leaf, right?
She held a hoof out, and we shook hooves. Compound did as well, and looked at our would-be new follower, and I knew if things went well, she may never leave us.
Thanks, Sceptic. See you around.
I told the medical expert goodbye before I realized I didn't know where I was headed next. But I did have an idea. The town I didn't get to investigate a few nights back. I wanted to see if there was anything else that could be found there. Deserted towns sometimes have goodies there that ponies forget existed. And where towns were, usually there were some factories or a vault nearby to employ ponies.
And you really never touched a gun, New leaf?
Scatter looked at me in disbelief.
No, I've only ever had to use my magic for all the time I've been around.
Compound carefully brushed my mane, and Scatter kept watching. Seemed like she wanted to say something, but couldn't. A few hoofsteps later, we were at my hideout in this town, after I had cleared the box, and Scatter followed us inside, and she started to shake her head as she saw my books, the mattress, and, well, even my plushie there.
The pony who lives here and, well, you, New leaf? That's the same?
She tried getting into her head that I was just as pony as she was, and I thought it was starting to settle.
Never got to see this much trust, forgiveness, or openness. Pretty much any other pony out of shot like that would have gotten me executed. But you straight up insist spending time with me and traveling.
Her ears folded down. She was looking at me while I was getting the book where I had wrote down the information about the town that I had visited earlier.
Yep, where I came from at least, that is how every pony used to be with every pony, and you don't ever need a reason to be kind.
I started justifying my actions, and she nodded and looked at Compound.
This cult sure showed me how life can swing the other way and suddenly become the best thing ever.
I blushed brightly as she kissed me, and Scattershot grinned at us, almost like she would say a loud aw sound any second.
In these wastelands, things are a little more hostile, Leaf. It's, well, different, but I like your approach to things. I want to see what it's like being around ponies that are a little more calm and chill. And I promise I'm not filling either of you with bullets. I feel horrible already.
She came out, and well, did I have an idea how to make sure this day would end on a high note before we would have to leave.
Hey, welcome back, Leaf.
The bartender from last night recognized me and Compound, and Scattershot also.
Scattershot, you warming up too?
He's an alicorn, but pony too.
She explained and grinned at me.
One round of cider for us, please.
I waved at the bartender. He placed apples in front of us, and a cast of a spell later we had, well, mugs of apple cider right in front of us. And we toasted to the day, enjoying the best refreshment in the wastelands. And I was making sure to not go overboard on night 1 with some pony new tagging along. Or so I thought.
Cheers, every pony.
He seemed surprised that we, well, were here as a whole group of ponies together. She lifted her mug and started drinking, and we followed soon after, cider after cider. I loved this, and our new pony started to lighten up, just like I did. Cider always got to my mood just as quick as sunlight got to the ground. Minutes later I felt this urge to move my body to some beat on the radio, and well, a cider-filled me is about 30% more careless. So I got off from the stool I was sitting on and started to move my hoofs to the beat, which I had to be careful with due to my injuries, but it was fine and didn't care anyway. Compound looked at Scattershot and winked.
When Equestria rose up from the ashes, all your backyards sure looking kinda trashy. This blue cult had the biggest and best idea. Green grass, clear water, the skies be
Betcha
blue.
you're not finding any alicorn that does this kind of stuff.
She chuckled and waved at Scatter to come over, as she started to dance with me. And before we knew it, we were dancing together as 3 ponies, into the night. And I did love the new company. It was nice meeting new ponies, and I was glad Compound and her got along well as they did. After a few more ciders and some honey-rich tea to cool us off, we eventually went to my den, ready to call the night a day. Once again I had moved the box back and forth to close behind us. Pretty sure I woke any neighbor with how clumsy I placed it, but you can't blame a slightly drunk pony. We went into my cozy hideout, and well, me and Compound sat down on the mattress, which wasn't exactly 3 pony sized, but it seemed me and Compound had the same idea.
Don't be shy. We're all ponies here.
Compound sat as I got out the blanket, and Scattershot sat down with us, slowly at first, and I started tucking us in. Me and Compound hugged, and Scatter looked at us, hesitating.
May I?
We don't bite, Scattershot. More cuddliness makes for better sleep.
Compound nodded firmly, agreeing with me, and we essentially cuddled another right into sleep. Was this new bond going to last? I didn't know, but it felt like I was doing the right thing.